1. I picked up a deaf boyfriend. I lied to him, saying I worked 3 jobs a day to pay for his treatment. In reality, I just spent the whole day wandering around before heading home. I was just in it for the looks. No need to suffer unnecessarily. Then one day while at a club, I unexpectedly saw him in a private room. This poor-looking guy suddenly turned out to be a wealthy young master. Someone asked him how long he'd keep up the act. He casually replied, "Until Luna returns to the country. She'll naturally disappear then. At worst, I'll give her a few million as compensation." That's when I realized I was just a stand-in for his first love. Heartbroken, I was about to leave. As I turned, his even hotter brother glanced at me with a cold smile. "What's with the act? I can see your smile reaching behind your ears." "I don't understand what you're saying," I replied cautiously, secretly admiring the sleek muscles under his black shirt. Felix clenched his jaw as I stared, looking even colder. "Bet you didn't think Jack had someone track you so he could party freely." I was taken aback. "You?" He smirked, eyes teasingly looking up. "Your idea of working 3 jobs is shopping till noon, chilling at a cafe all afternoon, and jumping rope at night before heading home?" I was sweating bullets at how much he knew. I had him believing I was a hard-working, poor girl deeply in love with him. My routine was supposedly flyer handing out in the morning, cafe work in the afternoon, and collecting recyclables at night. I'd return home utterly exhausted, supposedly giving my $2,000 monthly to him for his treatment. Jack totally bought it. Not only did he handle all the chores, but he also pampered me at night. Damn. I thought this sweet deal would last longer. I looked up at Felix, testing the waters. "What do you want?" He stepped closer, his flawless face right in mine, chuckling softly. "Jack's a jerk. I'm not here to blame you or tell on you." Snapping back to reality from his gorgeous looks, I swallowed hard. "Then what do you mean? Dump him, date me? You're welcome to get me checked, too." I was tongue-tied for a while. "Why would you be interested?" His eyes glinted with amusement, brows lifting. "Because you're pretty young and talented." "Makes sense. Who wouldn't be?" The day I found Jack, it was seriously pouring like the night in that classic family drama. Randomly picking up guys usually ends badly. But that day my heart was like a damp, moldy corner, strangely in sync with poor Jack. After graduating, I lived alone in Beijing. My parents tricked me into going home for a meal. Only halfway through did I realize it was my engagement party. I should have never expected anything from them. I immediately flipped the table, launching into a verbal attack. My mom cried and stomped, calling me ungrateful. My dad, enraged, went for a knife in the kitchen. I just sneered, warning them if they dared touch me, I'd definitely turn the family legacy upside down. Perhaps they'd never seen me so fiercely fearless. They backed off, telling me to get lost forever. To them, I was only worth exchanging for a bride price. So, I did get lost, and when back in Beijing I took Jack in. According to his story, he had a gambling dad and a weak mom. One night at 3 a.m. he was thrown out. He claimed years of domestic abuse left him deaf, requiring costly treatment. Honestly, back then it already seemed fishy. His skin was smooth, no calluses on his hands. Though his clothes were cheap, they felt new. Plus, he was good-looking enough to earn anyway, at least a fallen young master. But hey, he suited my taste. We both played pretend. I half-reluctantly dated him. On our first day together, I took him for a health check. That night, I shone a flashlight over every inch of him. Jack's body tensed, blushing. He typed out on his phone asking what I was doing. Checking for any disease, of course. After confirming he was clean, I bit his lip, whispered endless dirty talk he couldn't hear. Jack was super stiff, his neck beat red. That night was insane, a great experience. From then I worked outside, he handled the home front. Secretly, I had savings and even owned an apartment. I'd been drawing original comics since college, gaining some fame. Their adaptation brought in decent money. But I kept it quiet. No one knew, not even my parents, who thought I was barely surviving. Clearly, Jack had an ulterior motive coming close to me. I saw it as a trade-off. There was no way I'd give more. We both weren't angels anyway. I got home late that night. As soon as I opened the door, Jack hugged me, wearing the loungewear I bought him. His eyes were red, showing me a message on his phone. "Why didn't you pick up? Do you know how worried I was?" I was exhausted, lifting dull eyes to assess him. His confused expression grew as I controlled my voice. Jack, you really think this is fun? How long were you planning to deceive me? Playing me as a stand-in is so entertaining, huh? Jack froze. Lillian, you've misunderstood me, haven't you? My smile broke, realizing I'd never truly seen him before. I saw it all at the club today. Still gonna lie to me? After a long pause, he stepped back, looking at me, his voice raspy. Suddenly, the pitiful puppy became a noble, indifferent young master. What were you doing at the club? See, even now. 2. His first reaction was actually to question me. I slumped my shoulders hopelessly and pulled a pale yellow envelope from my bag, throwing it at his face. I earned that $1,000 for your treatment, happy now? The envelope fell to the ground, revealing a red corner. His jaw tensed up and his eyes flickered, a mix of emotion and anger. I shoved past his shoulder and headed for the room. Jack grabbed my wrist, his voice cold. I never meant to deceive you forever. Oh sure, once your first love's back, I'm out of the picture, got it. I'll compensate you. Hearing those words, I flung his hand away. Tears fell unexpectedly. Compensate? You rich folks think my feelings are measurable in cash, huh? So, tell me, Mr. Jack, what's my worth to you? He looked down, silent. I pointed to the door. Now leave. After locking myself in the room, I changed my demeanor instantly. I wonder if I did a good job playing the pitiful one. Hope I get more from him. Soon I heard the door close as he left. I rushed out, spotting a card on the coffee table with a note beneath it. There's 10 million in the card. Take care of yourself. 10 million, a whole 10 million. Almost like he had a sixth sense. Felix called me. He's gone, right? I'll help you move. I rolled my eyes, no need to rush. Felix sounded amused. You don't want him to change his mind, do you? Move now. A few days later, holding his medical report, I felt a bit absent-minded. So we're together now? Felix didn't even look up from his documents on the couch. Isn't that the plan? I murmured, shouldn't we get to know each other first? Jack and I weren't this fast. Ha, you call that deceptive relationship getting to know someone? Hey, quit talking about my sugar daddy like that. What do you want to know? I went to college abroad, came back to take over the family business, had one serious relationship, no private life drama. I'll give you 50 grand a month, any questions? I was at a loss for words, none. I could have just taken the money and left. But Felix is seriously the hottest guy I've ever met. I'm such a sucker for a pretty face. Why'd he choose me, someone with nothing but looks and talent? I don't really care. Probably has some shady motive like Jack. Maybe his thing is the thrill of one-upping his brother? Or maybe he likes recycled stand-ins for his first love too. But he gives me 50 grand a month, way better than stingy Jack. What more could I ask for? Thank you, universe. Felix stood up. Get some rest, it's really late. He pointed me to a spot. Your room's over there. I instinctively grabbed his arm, puzzled. Not sharing a bed, going for a platonic thing? Felix's arm muscles tensed up, trying to act calm, but his red ears gave him away. Too fast. I smirked back. You know I make comics, right? We creators need our outlets. Some hit up clubs, some watch horror flicks. I'm different. My gaze drifted to his lower abdomen as I spoke. Is that why you haven't dated in years? He suddenly grabbed my wrist, pressing me into the soft sofa. Why don't you find out? My surprise yelp was silenced as he kissed me deeply. Warmth spread through every inch of my body. That cotton nightgown gently fell to the floor. Just when things were heating up, the doorbell rang. Jack's voice came from outside. Felix, I need to talk to you. I panicked for a moment and instinctively tried to push away. Felix didn't budge, ignoring it all. He pinned my hands above my head, kissing me harder. I could barely breathe as he moved between my legs, overwhelming me. My body was melting, Jack's urgent knocks echoing through the air. A slight shiver caused me to bite Felix's lip accidentally. I whispered urgently, he's still out there. Felix glanced at me, his deep dark eyes full of desire and annoyance. His forearm supported next to my head, bluish veins visible, and he took deep breaths before standing up. I dashed back to the room. Soon I heard the door opening and their conversation. Jack probably saw the mark on Felix's mouth, sounding awkward. Did I interrupt something? Felix's voice was rough, with underlying impatience and annoyance. Got something to say or get lost quick? I wanted to ask if you know where Lillian is. Felix seemed indifferent. No, I don't. Jack grew agitated. Didn't you promise to look after her? How could you not know? You two broke up. I don't see why I'd help you continuously. Jack was silent for a moment, probably frustrated. I almost thought he left, but then he asked angrily, whose nightgown is this? It's identical to Lillian's. Is she here with you? Hastened footsteps approached. Crap, I forgot to take the gown in. My breath nearly stopped. I quickly closed the door. The next moment Felix pulled him back, his tone warning. Jack, you're crossing the line. I suggest you leave now. Jack seemed to gather his composure. Sorry. When we broke up, I immediately changed all my contact details. Felix agreed to cover for me just in case Jack had second thoughts. But here he was finding me anyway. Absolutely absurd. Once sure Jack left, I headed out of my room in a different set of pajamas. Felix had already left the living room, and my gown was gone with him. I hesitated, knocking on his door. Felix, you in there? He didn't reply, clearly sulking in there. 3. He keeps bugging me about pushing him away at the crucial moment. I feel a bit guilty, but I swear I don't have a kink for that kind of drama. My tone even softened a bit. Can I at least have my nightgown back? Soon I heard the shower running. My cheeks started getting warm as my mind wandered. I accidentally overheard Jack talking to Felix once. When I asked, Jack, trying to cover up, said Felix was a male model scout trying to recruit him. He claimed he turned them down firmly, giving me those puppy eyes for a reward. I of course rewarded him plenty. Caught up in that thought, I remembered Felix's striking side profile and thought, I'll definitely buy him a drink at the club when we break up. Snapping back to reality, I angrily pounded on the door. This is all Jack's fault. I had indescribable dreams all night. I came out of my room yawning with dark circles under my eyes. To my surprise, a big breakfast was already set on the table. It was obviously freshly made. I gave a puzzled look at Felix, who was all dressed up, sipping soup. He can cook? We both silently ignored what happened yesterday and finished breakfast in an awkward silence. Just as he was about to leave, I spoke up suddenly. Where's my nightgown? Felix froze, his gaze flickering just for a moment. It was old, I threw it away. I widened my eyes. Are you out of your mind? That was my favorite one. I had broken it imperfectly to get it just the way I liked. He sounded unsure, almost pleading. I'll buy you 10 more. I was a little annoyed, looking up at him with discontent. Seeing the redness in his ears, an idea dawned on me. You didn't do something weird with my nightgown, did you? Now his whole face turned a shade of crimson. Excusing himself with some work meeting, he bolted out of there. I chuckled lightly. Impressive. In the afternoon, the doorbell rang. A few uniformed shopping mall associates, wearing white gloves, respectfully delivered several boxes. They said Felix arranged it. I opened them, finding nightgowns of all different styles. I was just speechless. Calling him, he picked up quickly. Felix, what's this about? He answered fast, making it up to you. I could imagine him being all awkward, a smile playing at my lips. Well, I'm not entirely satisfied with this. There was a pause. What do you want then? I lifted a sexy deep V white silk lace nightgown between my fingers teasingly. I want you to come to my room tonight willingly. Click. The line went dead. I was stunned. Did he agree or not? Either way, he's not getting out of it tonight. So when the doorbell rang again, I went to answer it without a guard. Opening the door, I was shocked. Standing there with a face like a thundercloud was Jack. He stared me down, voice dripping with menace. Dozens of nightgowns, you two sure know how to play, huh? Realizing what he meant, I immediately slammed the door. Jack pushed against it, paling as his face got squashed. He took a breath to steady himself. Lillian, you're ruthless. I let him go, frowning at him. What are you doing here? Jack's anger flared even more. I should be asking you that. Why are you involved with Felix? I found it baffling. Didn't you set this whole thing up? He got all attached on the way. Jack's face contorted with shock. He took a step back, disbelief all over him. And you? We just broke up. And you're already clinging to another guy? Played it cool. Yep, I am. What about it? Lillian, did you ever even love me? He practically shouted. I couldn't help but laugh. Why didn't you ask that when you used me as a stand-in? What are you pretending for now? Jack's expression shifted, and as I turned away, he gripped my wrist tightly. Let go. Lillian, let me explain. Before he could finish, someone threw a punch that landed square on his jaw, making him stagger back. Felix stepped in front of me, eyes cold and intense. Jack, I warned you. Recovering, Jack met Felix punch for punch. They were both trained in fighting. Every hit a solid blow that made my teeth set on edge. Jack went wild, eyes rimmed with red. I trusted you, man. How could you do this? Don't blame others for what you didn't value, Felix shot back, his tone icy. They exchanged blows until a knowing cold laugh left Jack. Felix, no wonder you were so eager to help with my request. You were already planning something, huh? Felix didn't respond, focusing on dealing pain instead. It was quite a show seeing two hot guys brawl, but they'd end up in the hospital if I didn't stop them. I jumped between them. Knock it off. Aren't you ashamed? In the chaos, I landed a solid elbow on Jack. He gasped, frozen with disbelief, and all his strength seemed to drain away. Lillian, you're siding with him. Well, duh, he is my boyfriend. That statement froze Jack thoroughly. Color drained from his face, leaving him in disbelief. How long have you two even known each other? Does it matter? True love isn't about time. Jack seemed stabbed again, his eyes even more bloodshot. He opened his mouth, but Felix suddenly gasped in pain. I hurriedly pulled Felix inside, seeing him cock an eyebrow, smirking a bit at Jack as he did. I bandaged Felix up, fretting over his split lip. Ah, how do you let him mess up your pretty face? Felix's smirk evaporated. He caught my wrist, gazing seriously into my eyes. So you're only into me for my looks? I mean, yeah, pretty much. Even when he's mad, he looks even more handsome. But I didn't dare say that. I just flipped the script and took control. What about you? What did Jack mean by those words? What's your deal with me? Felix looked away. I thought he was going to make an excuse to avoid me again. But then I heard him say clearly, I had love at first sight with you. I looked up and met his not-so-innocent gaze. My heart skipped a beat. I looked away and replied, that's only natural. A low chuckle hit my ears. It felt like whiskey over ice. Oh no, now I'm not just into looks. I'm into voices too. Later, I choked back tears and told Felix to get some rest. It's all Jack's fault, that bad luck charm. Didn't even get any action. Didn't get a break either. The editor was already pestering me to start the sequel. After wrestling between slacking off and getting to work for a few minutes, I finally got up and opened my laptop. What others give you can also be taken away. What you earn is truly yours. So, I got back to my weird schedule, often not even running into Felix. One day, he knocked on my door. I was yawning and a bit impatient. What's up? Felix stood tall, wearing a perfectly pressed black shirt. He looked like a comic book hero come to life. But I glanced and looked away. The fatigue from work was more powerful than any earthly desires. Even if he stood naked before me, I'd just cover him up and send him off. Felix looked down at me. Are you working on the second installment of Curved Blade? I was startled. How do you know? I'm a fan of yours. His straight talk caught me off guard. As for how he figured it out, probably from spying on me at the cafe where I often draw. Felix hesitated. His Adam's apple bobbed before he spoke softly. Can I take a look? I looked up and noticed his whole ear was red. A new pickup line? I stifled a laugh. Come in then, I could use some reference advice. I was just being polite, but his insights surprised me. Felix was obviously familiar with my work and style. He caught every little detail and quirk I had designed and offered reasonable feedback and suggestions. It had been a while since anyone understood me like that. Except for my ex-online lover. Too bad he was a scammer. My foggy brain suddenly overflowed with inspiration. I chatted with Felix until late at night. I don't remember falling asleep. Woke up finding myself clinging to Felix like an octopus. He was in a deep sleep with a relaxed, handsome face, even better than I imagined Prince Charming would look like. I couldn't help but give him a light kiss. Though gentle, it woke him instantly. The sharp look in his eye softened when he saw me and looked a bit lost. Felix, thanks. He grabbed my hand, and as I toppled over from inertia, I landed on him. Felix let out a muffled grunt. I closed my eyes, eagerly awaiting the next part. But then he pushed me aside and stood up. If you're really grateful, then come with me to the party. I chuckled in disbelief. Is he really out of commission? I couldn't help but glance down. But, that definitely doesn't seem like out of commission. Felix slammed the door shut. Moments later, I heard his long shower session starting. I was puzzled. If he's doing that every day, isn't it bad for his health? At the party, Felix took me to a familiar VIP room. A mix of emotions hit me. And then seeing the girl in the middle who looked a bit like me, really did me in. Next to her was my ex-boyfriend. He shot me a cold glance. But when he turned to the girl, his look softened instantly. He said warmly, "Luna, don't drink too much." The girl's skin was smooth porcelain white, with a gentle, elegant demeanor. She was kind to everyone. Even to me, the ex-double, she was polite, without a hint of sarcasm. When others scrutinized me, she stepped in to defuse the tension. "Lilian, im Luna. You're Felix's girlfriend, right? You're beautiful." No wonder she was dubbed everyone's first love. But then she rolled her eyes at Jack. "Who are you? Mind your own business." Jack. Getting shot down back to back in front of his goddess. Jack's face turned as black as a skillet. I couldn't help but giggle. He spun around, glaring at me. His white-knuckled grip on his cup showed how hard he was trying. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Jack must have gotten hold of my new number somehow and texted me. "What's so funny? Look to your right." On my right was Felix. When I glanced over, he was already looking at Luna softly. Someone offered her a shrimp. Felix casually took it from her bowl. "Sorry, she's allergic to seafood." No one thought it was weird. It's like this was their usual dynamic. Noticing my gaze, he looked at me like nothing happened. "Want one?" The atmosphere suddenly felt stifling and hard to breathe in. I shook my head and looked back at that message. It wasn't funny anymore. I made an excuse to use the restroom. Barely got out when someone covered my mouth, pushing me against a firm chest. First a waft of alcohol, then that familiar fresh scent. "Jack." He bent slightly, his breath falling on my shoulder. My whole body tensed. His husky voice whispered in my ear. "Lilian, did you think Felix's interest in you had no purpose?" Look up and ahead. On the empty terrace were only Felix and Luna. They watched the night scene side by side, occasionally exchanging glances. The stars and wind were mere backdrops. Their fondness was indescribable. "He's the one who cares about Luna the most. He brought you here to show you reality. You're just a stand-in." My throat was dry. "Jack, what do you want to say?" He hesitated for a moment. 5. Warm, slender fingers turned my face. Our eyes met, revealing all the hidden emotions. Jack's expression instantly darkened, mixed with a hint of panic. "Lilian, don't tell me you've really fallen for Felix." I shrugged his hand off. "What's it to you?" He let out a cold laugh, but there was bitterness in his eyes. "We've been together for nearly 2 years. How long have you known him? How can you not have any feelings left for me, Lilian? Do you even have a heart?" Jack moved closer, almost gritting his teeth as he spoke. His usually sweet and clear eyes were now unnaturally red. I chuckled, looking at him mockingly. "Feelings built on lies. What's worth holding on to? Let's not pretend, all right? We both got what we needed. Let's not blame each other, okay?" He stood there, stunned, looking vulnerable like a little puppy who's been abandoned, swaying unsteadily. I tried to walk past him, but Jack held on to me. A hot tear rolled down his arm. "Lilian, I miss you. Come back, okay? I'll give you money as much as you want. Just don't stay with him." I said nothing, shook off his hand and left. Sigh, when will he ever understand? I don't need money that badly. I'm just attracted to people. When I realized I was looking forward to chatting with Felix, not just attracted to his body, I got a bit worried. Once feelings get involved, our mutually beneficial relationship is no longer pure. Stay or leave. Today, Felix made the decision for me. Maybe Jack was right, warning me not to get emotionally involved. No wonder Felix didn't want to be touched. He's saving himself for his first love, it seems. When I got home, I claimed I was dizzy and retreated to my room early. Shortly after, Felix knocked on the door. He had made some soup to help sober me up. "Drink this, you'll feel better." I nodded, drinking it all down. "Thanks." Felix didn't move after that, prompting me to glance at him. "Is there something else?" His jaw tensed. and he seemed to gather courage before asking, "Why did you drink so much today?" My mind went blank. I didn't know how to answer. As I lowered my gaze, a somewhat cold voice came from above. "Is it because of Jack? You're overthinking it." "Oh, none of my business." Felix, dissatisfied with my response, picked up the bowl and left. He was mad. The best way to resolve it was to chase after him and apologize. Once I realized what I was thinking, I was a bit stunned. Since when did I understand him so well? But I didn't move. I wrapped myself in the blanket and went to sleep peacefully. I had already bought my ticket to leave tomorrow. No need to explain anything further. When I woke up, Felix was nowhere in sight. But breakfast was still warm in the kitchen. I ate without a care and left a note for him. "Thought you were a male model, but you won't even let me touch you. No fun. Let's break up." Felix doesn't seem like the clingy type, so I left without worry. As soon as I landed, there he was like a ghost that wouldn't leave. "Are you stalking me?" It was autumn, and the weather was getting cooler. Jack walked toward me in a gray coat. He answered with a smile, his eyes bright. "Since you're single now, can I start courting you again?" Pulling my suitcase, I walked past him. "Sorry, I don't go back to exes." Jack grabbed my suitcase. "I'll give you a ride. We're going the same way." "Jack, don't you understand what no means? Rarely do I lose patience with others." Jack smiled at my irritation, but a fog seemed to cover his eyes. "I hear you, but I can't let go. Made a mistake, so I have to apologize and make up for it. Lillian, at least give me a chance." The driver I called had arrived, honking to get my attention. Snatching my suitcase back, I headed for the car. Once inside, the driver glanced in the rearview mirror and chuckled. "Trouble with your boyfriend?" Looking back, I saw Jack's car right behind us. I gritted my teeth. "Ex-boyfriend. Can't stop bothering me even after we broke up." The driver got serious. "Don't worry, my driving skills will lose him in no time." With that, he threw the car into motion, zigzagging through streets and alleys until Jack was nowhere to be seen. Arriving at my lodging, I almost felt nauseated. The driver puffed out his chest proudly. "Mission accomplished." With a pale face, I gave him a thumbs up. "Thanks a ton. I picked this quaint little town for a getaway after lots of research. It's off-season now, with lovely views perfect for a short stay." I spent the next few days wandering around the town. Feeling warm and cozy, I reminisced about simpler times. Passing a bubble tea shop, it seemed busier than the others. Curious, I got closer, locking eyes with Jack in an employee uniform. So the tea's popularity was because of the handsome staff. He was surprised for a moment, then delighted. "What would you like to drink?" For a moment, he reminded me of the Jack I once knew. Kind, sweet, always energetic. I looked away, leaving without saying a word. After that day, I saw Jack everywhere. Handing out flyers in the morning, making bubble tea in the afternoon, volunteering and picking up trash in the evening. Was he mimicking my lifestyle? Wiping sweat from his brow, he looked at me, slightly panting. "I couldn't believe how hard you worked back then." "I'm sorry." I met his gaze casually. "Wasn't hard at all." Seeing the mix of complex emotions in his eyes, I smiled slightly. "After all, I've never actually done those things." "Jack." After that, I stayed indoors. One morning, half awake, I ventured downstairs for breakfast. At the corner of the stairs, I knocked off a new lodger's sun hat. Picking it up, I stammered, "Sorry about that." "Lillian." The excitement in her voice made me freeze. Looking up, I was stunned. I thought this was a secluded travel spot. 6. I can't believe everyone I know is here. Luna's full of energy, and insisted on treating me to a meal. Didn't expect to run into you here. It's such a coincidence. Did you come here by yourself? Feeling a bit awkward, I mumbled a few words and changed the topic. Did you come alone too? She tucked her hair behind her ear, slightly embarrassed, biting her lip. "No, I'm here with my fiancé." For a moment, I felt a hitch in my breath. Our seats were by the window, with a view of the street below. Luna pointed out a pastry shop. "He's over there buying me something to eat." I glanced over in the direction she pointed, seeing a handsome stranger carrying a load of food, with a gentle smile on his face. "So you and Felix?" Before I knew it, I'd already asked the question. Luna's eyes widened. "Hold on a second. You didn't misunderstand anything, did you? Felix is my cousin, didn't he tell you? I closed my eyes peacefully. It's all Jack's fault. In the evening, Jack knocked at my door. Lillian, can we talk? There's nothing to talk about with you. All right, then I'll just sit here and not leave. Half an hour in. And he really wasn't planning on leaving. I couldn't take it anymore, and flung the door open. What on earth do you want? He sat on the floor hugging his knees, with those puppy dog eyes making him look as pitiful as ever. Just like when I first found him. Quick as ever, Jack slipped into the room. He hugged me tightly. Lillian, can we make up? At first, I treated you as a stand-in, but you're nothing like Luna. I never thought of you as her. Luna told me that she looks down on me, that my behavior disrespects both you and her. And she told me to ask my heart. My heart told me I was already in deep. Just wouldn't admit it, I was wrong. Can you forgive me this once? The more I struggled, the tighter he held on. His warm breath clung to my skin. He pretended to be the innocent prey, luring me in step by step. Sis, you always said you liked my body the most, right? You can do whatever you want, just don't leave me. His husky voice gradually lowered. He guided my hand to his chest, trailing it downward. I was a bit taken aback. Since when did Jack become so clever? Before I could react, a familiar fist landed on him. Felix stood there, glaring at him coldly. Why can't you just gracefully disappear when your time is up? How do you even find your way here? Is manipulating people all you know how to do? You think by making sure Lillian misunderstood my relationship with my cousin, you could slip in? Dream on. I looked at Felix, noticing he seemed a bit leaner these days. But he was impeccably dressed in a black suit, even during a fight. Underneath, glimpses of a leather corset, strap and armband were visible. Jack's expression turned sour. What the hell? Who are you trying to entice dressed like that? Felix wasn't mad, but instead gave a proud smirk and raised his eyebrows, seeming to show off. Aren't you the one who said I'm a male model? I'm just doing my job. Jack took a deep breath, infuriated. Don't you have any shame? Do you? Then why were you trying to seduce someone else's girlfriend? If you're in heat, go back to your own place. Jack ended up at a disadvantage, taking another hit to the face. He didn't fight back, just stared at me with wide eyes. I sighed. From the day you lied to me, our fate was sealed to end like this. Jack, leave yourself some dignity. His pride finally crumbled at this moment. After Jack left, I was figuring out what to say. Felix didn't ask much. He turned around, closed the door and locked it. Then, without a word, he opened the black suitcase he brought. Silver handcuffs, uniforms, blindfolds, a small whip, bondage ropes. My eyes widened in shock, and I took a step back. You. Felix lifted his head, gazing at me with a predatory look. He advanced toward me step by step, but stopped just a foot away, then knelt on one knee. The high-class suit pants outlined his strong, muscular thighs. I suddenly felt my mouth go dry. What are you doing? Felix cuffed my hand with the handcuff, then leaned in and kissed it lightly. Tonight, my body is yours to command. How can anyone resist when such a charming guy keeps flirting with you like that? I decided to follow my heart and jumped on him. All the sadness and longing poured into one crazy, intense kiss. The passion was like a gentle spring rain, endless. And as night fell, the rain grew fiercer, beating relentlessly against the window. Turns out keeping it in really does create issues. The crashing waves hit the shore again and again. I could barely handle it. We kept at it almost the whole night. It was nearly dawn before he carried me to the shower. When my head hit the soft pillow, I was drifting to sleep. But I still hadn't forgotten something important. Felix, can you tell me about your first love? He paused as he stroked my hair, speaking in a slightly hoarse voice lingering with a little aftermath. She called me a liar, so she dumped me. Felix buried his face in my neck, sounding muffled. I've never seen someone so mean. It's not my fault I came from a well-off family. I felt a bit complicated, amused yet slightly bitter for some reason. Luna's also a fan of comics. She and Felix get along so well, because they share the same interest. She even told me she'd known about me for a long time. Way before now. Back in freshman year, I had an online romance. My writing was still pretty rough back then, but he was my biggest fan. Once we added each other as friends, we chatted every day. It's hard not to be drawn to someone on the same wavelength as you. Naturally, we got together. When he suggested meeting in person, I learned about his family, a prominent family in Beijing, studying at a prestigious university abroad, ready to come back and inherit the family business. Especially when he mentioned his grandpa grew tea and wanted to send me some. I instantly pulled away and got alert. Doesn't this sound like a classic scam? First, what rich kid has time for an online romance? Second, the whole selling tea girl scam was so overdone by then. I used the excuse of going home to mourn and asked for a breakup, then deleted and blocked him everywhere. 7. Who would have thought that the person I was in an online relationship with turned out to be Felix? Luna said she laughed at Felix for a long time because of this. I didn't expect that after going in circles, we'd end up meeting again. I leaned into his chest. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Felix was silent for a moment. I knew you were just after my body, so I wanted you to learn to trust me bit by bit. Lillian, we've got plenty of time. Let's take it slow. I love you. He kissed my hair with devotion. My eyes felt a bit teary. The sun rose. I reached out to open the window. The sunrise jumped out from behind the mountains, slowly climbing up. This was the first sunrise we watched together. There will be many more sunrises in our future. After we got back to Beijing, nothing seemed to change, but at the same time, everything did. Like how Luna and I became good friends. And how Felix and I went from living in 2 separate rooms to 1. Jack hasn't bothered me since. He joined the company willingly, shedding his careless persona and becoming mature and steady. When talking about him, Felix's eyes carefully scanned every inch of my face. He wouldn't miss a single hint of nostalgia or longing. Especially on the day he proposed to me, Jack sent a message. If you regret it, I can crash your wedding anytime. Felix went and fought Jack again. Yet, it still didn't ease his insecurity. I playfully grabbed his feigned cold face. Don't worry. From the moment we broke up, I had no ties with him. Felix looked at me suspiciously. Even if he stood in front of you naked, you'd walk away? My speechlessness was twisted by him into guilt. So he picked me up and took me to the bedroom. We were caught up in a whole night of back and forth. He turned his back to me, meticulously tying his tie, like he wasn't the one being wild last night. Weakly I protested. Are you a dog? You keep biting. Felix glanced back at me. Yep, gotta mark you, so those sly foxes don't get any ideas. I wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. Felix, I love you. His body stiffened at those words. All his worries and insecurities slowly faded away. Felix bent down and scooped me into his arms. He indulgently inhaled deeply by my neck. After a while, I heard him whisper a single word in my ear. Woof. The end.